At my 30th birthday party, I caught my husband sneaking upstairs with my cousin, thinking no one would notice. My family insisted I not ruin the celebration and pretend nothing happened. I quietly recorded everything, left the party without a word, and what I released the next morning destroyed their fake perfect image forever. The sound of laughter downstairs was still echoing when I saw them slip away. My husband's hand brushed against my cousin's arm as they moved toward the staircase, their eyes darting around to make sure no one noticed. But I did. I froze, holding my champagne glass midair, the sparkle of the party lights suddenly feeling harsh, almost mocking. My 30th birthday, the night meant to celebrate me, was turning into the night I discovered everything I had feared but never wanted to admit. I didn't scream. I didn't call them out. Instead, I smiled at the guests around me, pretending nothing was wrong, while my heart raced with a mixture of rage and disbelief. My mother was fussing over the cake, adjusting candles as if perfection in wax could cover imperfections in life. My aunt teased her about setting off the smoke alarm and everyone laughed. My cousin had been the one who set up the playlist earlier, dancing around pretending to be the life of the party. Now she was sneaking upstairs with my husband, leaving behind the illusion of family harmony. The decorations sparkled in every corner, gold balloons, fairy lights draped across the walls, a banner that read, "Happy 30th," in bold letters. Guests clinked glasses, children ran around with balloons and relatives posed for photos. It looked like the perfect celebration. But beneath the glitter I felt the cracks widening. I had spent weeks planning this party, though most of the work was taken over by my family. My mother insisted on choosing the cake, a 3-tiered masterpiece with white frosting and golden accents. She said it had to look grand enough for 30. My cousin volunteered to handle the music, claiming she knew exactly how to keep the energy alive. My husband played the role of the supportive partner, smiling as he helped set up tables and greeted guests at the door. On the surface, everything looked perfect. Friends complimented the decorations, relatives praised the food, and neighbors admired how happy we all seemed. I smiled, nodded, and thanked them, but deep down I felt uneasy. My husband's smile seemed rehearsed, his laughter too loud, his eyes too distracted. He kept glancing around the room as though waiting for the right moment to disappear. I brushed off the feeling at first, telling myself it was just nerves. After all, turning 30 felt like a milestone and maybe I was overthinking. But the unease lingered, growing stronger with every passing minute. My family had always been good at pretending. We were the kind of family that smiled for photos even when arguments had just erupted minutes before. We knew how to keep secrets tucked away, hidden behind polite words and cheerful gestures. Tonight was no different. Relatives laughed loudly, clapping their hands as they toasted to my bright future. My mother whispered to me, "Don't forget to smile, everyone's watching." My aunt leaned in and said, "You're so lucky to have such a loving husband." I nodded, biting back the urge to tell her what I really thought. My husband played his role flawlessly. He greeted guests warmly, poured drinks, and cracked jokes. To anyone watching, he looked like the perfect partner. But I noticed the way his eyes flickered toward my cousin, the way she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, the way they seemed to share a secret language no one else understood. It was a performance and everyone was part of it. The decorations, the food, the laughter, it was all a mask hiding the truth that was about to unravel. It happened quickly, almost too quickly. One moment I was standing near the cake table smiling for a photo. The next I saw my husband moving toward the staircase, his steps quiet but deliberate. My cousin followed close behind, her hand brushing his arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My chest tightened. I told myself it could be innocent. Maybe they were checking on something upstairs, maybe they needed a break from the noise. But the way they moved, the way they looked around to make sure no one noticed, told me otherwise. I set down my glass, excused myself from the group, and followed them. My heels clicked softly against the wooden floor as I climbed the stairs, careful not to draw attention. The laughter downstairs grew faint, replaced by the muffled sound of voices. At the top of the stairs I paused. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought they might hear it. I moved slowly, careful not to make the floor creak. The hallway was dim, lit only by the glow of a lamp near the guest room. I followed the sound of hushed laughter until I reached the door. It was slightly ajar. Through the narrow gap I saw them. My husband and my cousin stood close, whispering, their faces lit by the soft glow of the lamp. She touched his shoulder and he leaned in, smiling in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Their laughter was quiet, intimate, meant only for each other. I froze. The sting of betrayal cut deeper than I expected. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, pressing record. I captured their whispers, their laughter, their closeness. Proof. Evidence. The truth that no one could deny. For a moment I wanted to burst in, to confront them, to demand answers. But something inside me told me to wait. If I stormed in, they would deny it, twist the story, make me look irrational. No, I needed proof. I needed them caught in their own web. I stepped back quietly, my pulse racing, and returned downstairs. The noise of the party hit me like a wave. Guests were gathered around the cake, singing loudly, clapping their hands. My mother called out, "Where have you been? We're about to cut the cake." I forced a smile, though my face felt stiff. Moments later, my husband reappeared, his arm casually brushing against my cousin's as they joined the crowd. No one seemed to notice. No one cared. They laughed, they toasted, they posed for pictures, all while the truth lingered upstairs like a shadow. I tried to pull my mother aside, but her response was sharp. "Don't ruin the celebration," she whispered, her eyes darting toward the guests. "Whatever you think you saw, keep it to yourself. Tonight is about you." My aunt echoed the same sentiment. "We don't need drama tonight," she said firmly. "Smile, cut the cake, and let's move on." Their words stung more than I expected. It wasn't just my husband and cousin who betrayed me, it was my family too. They chose silence over truth, image over integrity. I stood there, surrounded by people who claimed to love me, yet none of them wanted to acknowledge the knife that had already been twisted in my back. I cut the cake, posed for pictures, and accepted gifts with a smile that felt painted on. Inside I was crumbling. Every laugh, every cheer, every toast felt like a performance in a play I no longer wanted to be part of. By the time the party wound down, I had made my decision. I wouldn't confront them tonight. I wouldn't give my family the satisfaction of sweeping this under the rug. I would play along, smile for the cameras, and let them believe I was fooled. But deep down I knew the truth was mine to hold, and when the time was right I would use it. That night, as the last guests left and the house grew quiet, I stood alone in the living room, staring at the remnants of the celebration. The balloons sagged, the cake sat half-eaten, and the decorations looked tired. My husband was laughing with my cousin in the kitchen, unaware that I had already seen enough. I touched my phone, feeling the weight of the recording, and whispered to myself, "They think no one noticed." But I did. The last guest's laughter faded into the night as the door closed behind them. I stood in the living room, staring at the sagging balloons and half-eaten cake, my phone heavy in my hand. My husband's voice drifted faintly from the kitchen, mingling with my cousin's laughter. They thought the night was theirs. They thought I hadn't seen. I slipped my shoes back on, grabbed my coat, and walked out without a word. The air outside was sharp, cooler than I expected. The street was quiet, almost eerily so compared to the noise I had just left behind. My heels clicked against the pavement, each step echoing in the silence. I didn't look back at the house. I couldn't. Every step away felt heavier, as though betrayal itself clung to me, refusing to let go. I reached my car parked at the end of the street. The interior smelled faintly of vanilla from the air freshener, a scent that usually calmed me. Tonight it felt suffocating. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the dark windshield. My phone buzzed with messages, friends thanking me for the party, relatives sending photos, but I ignored them. Instead I opened the recording. Their voices filled the car. Whispered laughter. His tone soft and playful. Her giggle sharp and knowing. I closed my eyes, listening to the proof of everything I had feared. My marriage, my family ties, the image of loyalty, it was all built on lies. The sound of their betrayal was louder than the music had been downstairs. Anger surged first, hot and consuming. I wanted to storm back inside, throw the recording on the big screen, and watch their faces crumble. But then sadness crept in, heavy and suffocating. I thought of the years I had spent building this life, the trust one had given so freely, the sacrifices I had made. Disbelief followed, sharp and disorienting. How could they do this? How could my family ask me to stay silent, as though my pain was less important than their image? I sat there for what felt like hours, the recording playing over and over. Each time I caught new details. The way his voice softened when he spoke to her, the way she teased him, the way they seemed so comfortable in their secrecy. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was deliberate. Memories began to surface, moments I had brushed aside, red flags I had ignored. I remembered the time my cousin joked about how handsome my husband was, lingering too long on the compliment. I remembered his unexplained absences, the nights he claimed to be working late but returned with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I remembered family gatherings where they sat too close, laughed too easily, shared glances that seemed harmless at the time. Each memory now fit together like pieces of a puzzle I had refused to see. The signs had been there, but I had chosen trust over suspicion. Tonight that choice felt like a mistake. I leaned back in the seat, staring at the ceiling of the car. My breath fogged the glass and I wiped it away with the sleeve of my coat. The night outside was still, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, breaking the silence. The temptation to act immediately was strong. I imagined walking back into the house, holding up my phone and letting everyone hear the truth. I imagined the shock, the gasps, the excuses. But then I thought of my mother's words, my aunt's insistence, the family's demand for silence. They would twist it, blame me, call me dramatic. No, confronting them now would only give them power. Patience, I told myself. Silence was not weakness. It was strategy. Let them believe I was fooled. Let them think they had won. Tomorrow the truth would speak louder than any denial. I pulled out my phone again, carefully saving the recording to multiple folders, ensuring it couldn't be lost. My fingers trembled as I typed out a draft message, one that would expose them when the time was right. I didn't send it yet. I wanted the timing to be perfect. The anger that had consumed me earlier began to fade, replaced by a strange calm. It was the calm of someone who had already decided. Their fake perfect image was about to shatter and I would be the one to break it. I started the car, the engine humming softly in the quiet night. I didn't drive anywhere. I just sat there, letting the sound soothe me, grounding me in the moment. The headlights illuminated the empty street, casting long beams of light into the darkness. I thought about the years ahead, the choices I would have to make, the strength I would need. But tonight wasn't about the future. Tonight was about holding on to the truth, about preparing for the moment when silence would end. I stayed in the car until the sky began to lighten, the first hints of dawn creeping over the horizon. The night had been long, filled with storms of emotion, but I had survived it. I had faced the truth, accepted it, and prepared for what was to come. As the sun rose, I whispered to myself, they think no one noticed. But I did. And tomorrow everyone will. The first rays of sunlight crept through the windshield, painting faint streaks of gold across the dashboard. I sat there, motionless, my phone resting in my lap like a weapon waiting to be fired. The night had been long, but dawn carried with it a strange clarity. My decision was no longer a question. It was a certainty. I unlocked my phone, opened the recording and pressed share. I didn't send it to everyone at once. I chose carefully. Family group chats, close friends, a few colleagues who had always admired my husband's perfect marriage. Each recipient mattered. Each one had been part of the illusion and now they would see the truth. My fingers trembled as I hit send, but the moment the message left my phone, a wave of calm washed over me. The silence lasted only minutes. Then the storm began. My phone buzzed relentlessly, calls, messages, notifications piling up faster than I could read them. Some were short and sharp. Is this real? Others were longer, filled with disbelief. I can't believe he would do this. And then there were the ones that stung. Why would you share this? You're ruining the family's name. I ignored the calls at first, watching the chaos unfold from the safety of my car. The same relatives who had told me to stay quiet were now scrambling, their voices desperate, their words dripping with panic. My aunt called 3 times in a row, leaving voicemails that swung between anger and pleading. Take it down, she begged. You don't understand what you've done. People will talk. Yes, people would talk. That was the point. My mother's message arrived next, short but heavy. Come home. We need to fix this. Fix? The word made me laugh bitterly. They hadn't wanted to fix anything last night. They wanted silence, a smile, a performance. Now that the curtain had fallen, they wanted me to patch it back together. I finally answered one call. My cousin's. Her voice was frantic, trembling. Why would you do this? You've embarrassed me, you've embarrassed everyone. Do you know how cruel this is? I let her speak, her words tumbling over each other, her tone shifting from anger to desperation. When she paused, I answered calmly, cruel? Cruel was sneaking upstairs with my husband during my birthday party. Cruel was laughing while I cut the cake downstairs, pretending everything was fine. I didn't create this mess, you did. She fell silent. For the first time she had no clever reply. By mid-morning the scandal had spread beyond family. Friends messaged me shocked. Neighbors whispered. Colleagues sent cautious texts, some supportive, others curious. My husband's reputation, once polished and admired, was unraveling thread by thread. He had always been the charming one, the dependable one, the man people pointed to as an example. Now he was the man caught betraying his wife at her own party. I imagined him waking up to the flood of messages, his phone buzzing with the same relentless storm. I wondered if he would try to call me to explain, to deny. But he didn't. Not yet. Perhaps he knew there was nothing left to say. The family's perfect mask was destroyed. The same relatives who had smiled for photos last night were now scrambling to protect themselves. Some tried to blame me, claiming I had overreacted, that I should have handled it privately. Others begged me to take the recording down, promising to talk to him, or set boundaries, if I just stopped the scandal. But I stood firm. They had chosen silence over my pain. They had told me not to ruin the celebration, not to speak the truth. Now the truth was louder than their whispers and I wasn't going to silence it. By noon the whispers had reached beyond family circles. Neighbors exchanged knowing looks, colleagues avoided eye contact, and friends debated whether to call me or stay quiet. The recording had done its work. It had exposed the cracks, shattered the illusion, and forced everyone to confront what they had ignored. Me. I felt lighter. For the first time in years I wasn't carrying the burden of pretending. I didn't have to smile through betrayal, didn't have to swallow my pain for the sake of appearances. The weight had lifted, replaced by a strange sense of freedom. I walked back into the house later that day, not to reconcile but to reclaim my space. The decorations still hung limply, the cake sat untouched, and the silence was thick. My husband sat at the table, his phone in his hand, his face pale. He looked up at me, searching for words, but I didn't give him the chance. "I hope you enjoyed your performance," I said quietly. "Because it's over now." He didn't reply. His silence was louder than any excuse he could have offered. I moved through the house, gathering my things, feeling the relief of no longer being tied to the lies. Every step felt like a step toward a future I could rebuild. A future without him, without her, without the family's suffocating demands. As evening approached, I sat by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The day had been chaotic, filled with calls, messages, confrontations. But it had also been liberating. I had faced the storm, released the truth, and survived. The lesson was clear. Silence can be powerful when used wisely. Last night my silence had been strategy. This morning my voice had been justice. Betrayal had taught me strength, revenge had given me peace, and truth, once revealed, could never be hidden again. I closed my eyes, letting the calm settle over me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions. But tonight I had closure. Tonight I had reclaimed my power.